I'm Nalini Bethel. I'm the Senior Director for Global Communications for the Bahamas Ministry of Tourism. Basically, it was one of those way out ideas that we had. We've been having hurricanes for a while, and we decided that the reporting that we were getting on the U.S. stations were really kind of detrimental to the tourism because they were not reporting accurately. And people, if there was a hurricane that was coming down to Inagua, say, they were reporting that there was a hurricane in the Bahamas, and people were canceling vacations and coming to Nassau or Grand Bahama. And the geography of the Bahamas is such that you don't necessarily you would not necessarily be affected by a hurricane in the southern Bahamas in the northwestern Bahamas, depending on the direction that the hurricane is traveling. So we decided that what we needed to do is to bring attention to the weather community, the geography of our country, and it was really a geography lesson for the weather community in the United States. I think in the very first year we only had about 26 meteorologists come, and now we're up to 105. And as I think you've witnessed the fact that every 10 minutes there's a different station broadcasting, and there's four stations that are actually doing their broadcasts simultaneously. So we've had to invest quite a bit in equipment and satellite, bringing in a satellite truck and all that stuff. But we've done it. No better place than in the Bahamas, trust me. And it's in April, so the weather's usually glorious at this time of the year. And the conference actually attracts some really heavy weight persons in the weather community, like the director of the National Hurricane Center. We've now got Max Mayfield, the former director, as our conference coordinator. And so it really has been a very good experience for the Bahamas. People thought we were crazy to draw attention to hurricanes, but in actual fact it's worked better for us, because today you will hear a meteorologist say, for instance, that don't cancel your vacation to Nassau. The hurricane is only going to go past Mayaguana very briefly. They've gotten to know the geography of the islands of the Bahamas, and that's very important. It's a key place for networking amongst their own peers in the United States. And also a lot of the meteorologists have tremendous respect for our Met Department. And today, for instance, we had a presentation by Arthur Roll, our director. And yesterday we had Donna Duncombe, the weather person here on Grand Bahama Island. She presented on Tropical Storm Noel and the effects of that tropical storm on the northern Bahamas. In general, basically what I do is oversee all of the advertising and public relations activities on behalf of the islands of the Bahamas. I liaise with the contracted agencies, Weber Shandwick and Arnold. We have agencies in Europe, we have agencies in Canada. And so basically my job is to direct the activities of all of our agencies worldwide.
I'm Steve Lyons, and I'm the hurricane expert at the Weather Channel. Well, we're in an active era. We have been since 1995, and so that's sort of in line if you take the average since 95. Those numbers are exactly what was forecast for this year. So they're basically forecasting an average season for since 1995. But what that means to anybody that's in any specific location on the U.S. coastline or any place in the Caribbean is that it only takes one to hit you. You can have a very quiet year, and if that one happens to hit you, it's an active and memorable year for you, and it could be a disaster. So we don't like to put much credit on people paying too much attention to those numbers relative to doing anything other than preparing for the hurricane season. Francis and Jean were one right after the other, almost in the same track. It was really pretty sad for not only the Bahamas, but also for Florida. That was an active year, not as active as the following year. Yet we had more landfalls in 2004. So that's an example. The numbers in the Atlantic and the numbers that hit the United States or any other location are very poorly related. So people have to remember, if the pattern is right to steer it in your direction, even if it's a quiet year, once one forms, watch out. That's the most important thing to remember. I like to hear what other meteorologists are thinking, especially the ones on television, because I don't usually watch them. I'm not able to watch them locally, whatever market they're in. They can see me sometimes, but I can never see them. So it's my chance to sort of inflict my opinion on the hurricane season and hurricane forecasts. And I also try to tell people about the impacts from hurricanes, because they're so important. It doesn't matter if it's a Category 1 or a tropical depression. If it produces 15 inches of rain in an area and floods the area dramatically, it's important to the people that are there. So the impacts are the most important element, not how many are out there, what the intensity of it is, although the most intense hurricanes are by far the most dangerous from a wind damage standpoint. I've been with the Weather Channel 10 years. I never expected to be on television as a meteorologist. My past careers range from private consulting to university professor at 3 different universities, to a scientist, a research scientist for the Navy and at Geophysical Fluid Dynamics Laboratory, where I worked on climate models. And I just ended up at the Hurricane Center, and then I got on TV at the Hurricane Center for different storms, and the Weather Channel asked me to join them 10 years ago. I became a meteorologist because I was interested in waves growing up in Southern California. I was a wave forecasting nut early on, and I noticed that a lot of the big waves in Southern California in summer come from hurricanes from a very far distance off of Mexico. So that was my link, the waves to surfing and the hurricanes off of Mexico. And from that day on, I was interested in weather. So if you're interested in weather, read about it, learn as much as you can about it on your own, at the library at school or at the public library. And there are a lot of universities around the country that offer meteorology as a major, undergraduate and a graduate college as well. I always think of the person on whatever island that's closest to the center of that circulation, what's going to happen to them, and I try to report that as best I can. I'm glad people watch.
I'm Max Mayfield, the former director of the National Hurricane Center, and I'm honored to be the conference organizer and chair of this year's Bahamas Weather Conference. This was actually fun to get some of the speakers in, and we've got some of the best forecasters and researchers and emergency managers from all over, and very importantly, we've got the link to the public from all those people, the broadcast meteorologists. So at least the feedback that I'm getting so far has been very successful. We've actually talked about a lot of things, and the conference originally started as kind of a geography lesson to make sure we did a better job on accurately reporting hurricanes. And for example, not too many years ago, some people in the media would confuse the Bahamas with Bermuda or Barbados, or they might imply that all the Bahamas were under hurricane warning, when in fact only a small portion of the islands were. And I think people always come away from this conference with a better understanding of the impact that their reporting has on lives and livelihoods, hundreds or even thousands of miles away. But then this conference, we've discussed a lot of things, from the seasonal forecast by Professor Bill Gray and Dr. Phil Klotzbach, how to use that and how not to use that forecast, mainly not to focus on the numbers. We've talked about building code, the importance of building codes and insurance. We've talked a little bit about forecasting and the improvements there. And then we ended the day with a pretty healthy debate on the impact of global warming on hurricanes. And the debate on that is certainly still going on. And what we don't want to do is use that as an excuse to not prepare. I mean, if you're lucky enough to live in the beautiful Bahamas, you need to be prepared no matter what the argument is on global warming or what the seasonal forecast is. You need to be prepared. When I was at the Hurricane Center, it was an honor to coordinate with the Bahamas Meteorological Service, and we've got a very close relationship. Dr. Arthur Roll is I consider not just a colleague but a dear friend as well, and we coordinate the way it works within the region. There are 26 member countries within the region, and they use the forecast in the National Hurricane Center, but the individual watches and warnings are posted by the individual countries. So the Bahamas, they will put up their own watches and warnings in coordination with the Hurricane Center, and that works very, very well. And then we get ham radio reports, even when you do lose power here. So there is some communication going on all the time, but it still comes down to that individual preparedness. And we want every individual to take that personal responsibility and know exactly what they're going to do before the next hurricane comes. I missed the first conference back in 1997, and I started coming in 98, and I may have missed one or two since then, but hopefully I'll be able to come now for many more years.